Hello, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, I just wanted to talk about my worst Tinder date, and I was kind of thinking that, I don't know, it almost feels like every Tinder date is a worst Tinder date. But I specifically wanted to focus on this story because I think after this Tinder date, I really started to look at the way I was approaching dating, the way I was, approaching love, and how I was really devaluing myself as a human being. So, before I get into it, please click the subscribe button if you have not already. Let me get into it. So, about 3 years ago, um, this is when I worked at the previous company, and all of my friends, all of my single friends, were on Tinder. It was kind of like a thing in our company where everybody had a Tinder account, except for me. I was the one person in my group of friends, pretty much in our company, who was not on Tinder, and for good reason. I think back then I had a lot of insecurities about the way that I looked. I had insecurities about my voice, about my body. The list goes on. So I didn't want to put myself in a position where people would judge whether or not they wanted to get to know me on my physical appearance, because I felt like I was going to get clocked on Tinder, and I felt like it was going to somehow emotionally mess me up, even more messed up than I was already. So for the longest time, I was very anti-Tinder. So eventually my friend, we're going to call her Nicole convinces me to get a Tinder account. I get a Tinder account, and me being the honest person that I am, I put all of my information out there. Well, not all of my information, but I basically spill the tea in my profile so that anyone who hits on me knows what they're getting themselves into. Now, I noticed initially the people who would get on to my Tinder, I got a lot of just really disgusting and vile messages. There was never a hello, there was never how are you. It was always basically the boys just went into Tinder to come fuck me. And that was kind of like the situation. And every message that I read was people asking me about, what was going on downstairs, how they want to fuck me, this, that, and the other. And I really got tired of going onto Tinder and that being the only thing that I saw. There were a few guys that would get on that would be relatively nice and, wouldn't treat me like a piece of meat. But by and large, I would say 90% of them, they weren't worth responses. So, this one guy, I remember he messaged me something terrible, and after that interaction, I was like, let me just remove this off my profile. So I took the T off. I just, put my name, where I'm from, I put something in my description, and I left it at that. And I don't want to say overnight, but within the space of a week, I noticed that my likes were, they had doubled. They had doubled. The number of people who were interested in me, it suddenly had doubled. And that kind of made me feel some type of way. You know what I mean? When you can notice that, okay, when I put all my information out there, people are less interested. But when I don't tell people about my team, now suddenly the boys want to talk to me. So that kind of, I don't want to say it messed with my self-esteem, because my self-esteem was already low enough without that incident happening. But it kind of made me feel not embarrassed or ashamed, but it made me not want to tell people the situation. So I kept Tinder on as this weird kind of ego boost. I would get a lot of likes, and I would get, guys wanting to talk to me, and I, by and large, would ignore them, because it was like, what's the point in me even talking to you if you're probably not going to like me? That was the mentality that I had. So let's fast forward to beginning of this year. I'm on Tinder looking at all of, my likes and all of that, and I match with this one guy. And let me describe this boy. If he's watching, oh my God. You know I have nothing but love for you. Anyway, so I matched with this boy, and he has like ash blonde hair, big blue eyes. He's playing a guitar. Yeah, he was just really, really cute. And he messaged me, and he said something really funny in his message. So I responded. And once we get to talking, I noticed that in his profile it said that he's from Omaha, Nebraska. Now, for those that are not from the United States or have never been to the United States, Omaha, Nebraska is one of the most segregated cities in the U.S. There's just a lot of conservative ideologies and a lot of racism, and it's steeped in Christianity and conservative ideologies. And it's a well-known fact that a lot of people from Omaha, Nebraska tend to not like the LGBTQ+. So when I saw that, I responded. Well, I messaged him and I was like, oh shit, you're from Omaha. So he's like, well, please don't hold it against me. And then he started making jokes about his city and talking about, how stupid some super conservative people are in his city. So, we had a really, really good banter. So he's in Cape Town for the next 2 weeks, and we decide that we're going to meet up against my better judgment. Now, you have to understand, I have not told this boy my tea. I haven't spilled my tea. I haven't mentioned it, but I agree to meet him. Now, I want to say that I was just in a different place at that time, because now, I'm very hesitant to meet someone who doesn't know my situation, because I feel like that will end in heartbreak, or it'll end in disappointment or some type of rejection. So I avoid meeting guys and then telling them later. I try to let them know straight from the jump, because it's 2020. Girls are not hiding their tea anymore. Anyways, so I agree to meet up with him, and I decide that the best place to meet up with him was at a friend's farewell. So I have this friend, Max. I actually met her that day. It was her farewell. She was saying goodbye to all of her friends in South Africa, and she was going back to Germany. So I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be at this place at this time. We could meet up there, it's my friend's farewell. So I leave with my one friend, Cody. So me and Cody, we go to Max's farewell. And, oh gosh, that whole evening was just a fuck up. Because right from the jump, I was super nervous meeting this guy, because number one, I did kind of like him. I would never have agreed to meet him if I didn't feel some type of way. And number two, I was super anxious that he was going to reject me because of my situation. Now, is it really ever rejection if you accept yourself? But anyways, I was feeling very, very nervous. So we get to the farewell, and he messages me, and he arrives. So he comes and he sits next to me, and we're talking and we're kikiing. And, he was just as awesome as I thought he would be in person. Now, as we're talking, okay, this is what my friends said who were watching us. They said that his whole body was turned towards you, and he was engaging, and he looked super interested in the conversation, as did I. So as we're talking, he's all like, yeah, he really wants to come back to Cape Town. What hope did I have in this man? What hope did I have in this man who lives in another country? But I digress. So he says, oh, he really wants to come to Cape Town and bring his fiancée. So I'm like, bitch, what? Your what fiancé? What? And he's like, my fiancé, I'm polyamorous. No, I just needed a moment to let that digest in my system. Of course, I know what polyamory means. I've met people that are polyamorous. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. But I was kind of like, what? When I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where a guy's talking to you and you find out he has like a whole girlfriend or a fiance or wife, and you're like, well, what are you doing talking to me? So he was like, well, listen, this was on my profile. It says that I'm polyamorous. And then he told me more about his polyamory and his fiance and the type of relationship that they had. Now, at this point, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he had stated on his profile that he's polyamorous, because I remember looking at his profile and not seeing that. Must be something wrong with my eyes, but I did not see that. But I kind of felt like, okay, well, this is an opening from heaven. He just told me he's polyamorous. Bitch, spill your tea. So I was like, okay, well, since you're polyamorous, I should come clean as well. I'm actually a woman of trans experience. And he was like, oh, okay. And I think I asked him how he felt about that. And then he was like, this is something that guys do, or that people that are cis do, that annoys the living hell out of me. They like to act like they knew. So he immediately was like, oh, I kind of had a suspicion, but I wasn't sure. So then I had to ask him, obviously being a nosy bitch, I was like, okay, well, how did you know? And his response was, when you were texting me, you seemed way too eager. That's how I knew. And I'm like, boy, like, honestly. Oh, it was so annoying. So now we're talking about how he knew and whatnot. And this other girl, who actually is my friend now, so don't hold this against her, she picked up on the conversation and she was like, yeah, I also knew. And I'm like, how did you know? Because she was sitting in the back seat of the car with us. And she's like, no, I didn't know from anything physical, but from your voice, I could pick up from your voice that you were trans. And I'm like, brah, look at these people. And that's what people do sometimes. Once you come out with your truth, they look for things to not tear you apart, but in a sense, they kind of tear your womanhood apart. And this is why I never had put transgender on my Tinder dating profile, because people had a tendency of doing this. People would message me and be like, oh, I could tell from this, or I kind of knew because of that. When in reality, they didn't. There's actually a study that's been done that shows that even cisgender women get misgendered. If you put the trans label over anyone, they are likely to still get misgendered, and people are likely to clock them. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but once people find out what your T is, they look for anything and everything to basically hold against you. And that's essentially what they were doing. So, he was like, yeah, I kind of knew and whatnot. But anyways, we continue talking. Other people get into the conversation. And at this point, he's turned his whole body away from me, and he's talking to this other girl who was in our group. And yeah, I pretty much picked up and figured out that, okay, this is not going to be anything. It's not going to be anything. And it's kind of messed up because, when you're in that type of situation where you feel like you're rejected, you sometimes focus so heavily on the fact that they rejected you that you don't ever stop yourself to ask yourself the question, well, did I even ever really want this person? After this new information has been brought to the table, do I want to be with this person? Do I want to make it work with this person? Is this somebody that I'm interested in? No. Me being this insecure bubble fixated on the fact that he had rejected me. And it makes you feel like there's something wrong about you. It makes you feel like there is this dark secret that no one should ever find out, that it's this one thing that stands in the way between you and happiness. And that's a horrible place to be. So he ends up leaving. He ends up leaving with this other girl from the group. Nothing romantic or sexual happened there, to my knowledge, but they leave together. And yeah, this is a bad Tinder date. But anyways, they leave together, and I'm chilling with the rest of the group, and Cody's there, so I have my friend, and Max was there, and then we start talking, and the other girls started asking me, well, how do you feel about that? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you feeling? And oh gosh, I don't want to get emotional, but I basically was like, look, at the end of the day, I accept myself, and I see myself as wonderful, and I see myself as beautiful, and even if other people can't always see that, it's not a reflection on my worthiness. And his rejection is protection. It's the universe's way of protecting me. So often the reason rejection hurts so much for me is because I place so many unrealistic expectations on other people. So for example, I'll have a date with a guy, and the expectation is that he's going to think I'm gorgeous and beautiful and want to be with me. And if he falls short on that expectation, it makes me feel shit. And then I place unfair expectations on myself. So I place unfair expectations on myself in that I expect myself to be the prettiest girl in the group, for my voice to be perfect, my skin to be perfect, my body to be perfect. So my ass, boobs, hair, everything to be perfect, just so this boy will accept me. I'm like, you have a small dick and I accept you. I don't know if he has a small dick, but I'm just saying, we hold ourselves on this pedestal and we're like, I need to tick all of these boxes in order to find love. Whereas the truth is, bitch, if he's going to love you, he's going to love you regardless. He's going to love you with a pot belly. He's going to love you with round cheeks, no cheeks, skinny butt, fat butt, long hair, short hair, dark skin, light skin. It doesn't matter. Because if he's going to love and accept you, he's going to love and accept you as you are. So I explain that to the girls, and then I start getting emotional. I start crying. And all of the girls start to hug me, and they're like, you know when you have a group of girls and a guy has done something, everybody's like, oh, fuck him. He wasn't even that cute anyways. You're so much better. And I learned from that experience. I really learned that, number one, I'm not going to put myself out there like that anymore. I'm not going to put myself out there in the sense that I go on dates with these guys and then tell them after the fact that I'm trans. You know what I mean? Look, every girl is different. If you want to do it that way, go for it. Just be safe. But for me as a person, I'm not going to do that anymore. At the end of the day, my trans identity is just as much a part of my identity as my black identity. And not only is it just as much a part of my identity as my black identity is, but I'm also proud of it. I'm also proud of the person that I am. And I want to be with somebody who not only is proud of me, but respects me and wants me as I am, not as I could be. So I free myself, I release myself from all of these unfair, unrealistic expectations that I place on men that I don't even know. And I place all of the responsibility to love myself on myself. No longer on these men that I met on a dating app from God knows where. No, I'm the one who's responsible for loving myself. I'm the one who's responsible for accepting myself. And other people can come in and join in on my self-love hayride, or they can choose to step away from me, and that's okay. But I'm not going to do this anymore. So after that, I started putting on my profile that I was trans and that it was something I was very proud of. And yes, you know, I still got some disgusting and horrible messages, but I also got really lovely messages from genuine people. Look, it's not about the quantity. It's not about having 300 people swipe right as opposed to having 50 people swipe right. It's about finding that one person that's going to love and accept you. And before you can find that one person, you need to first give yourself that gift. I know I've been rambling, and I know this video has been long. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you've ever had an experience similar to this, please let me know. So comment, like, and share this video if you care. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching me and supporting me. I love you tremendously, and I've missed making videos so freaking much. Alright, goodbye, Auf Wiedersehen, and I'll see you next time. Peace, love, and many blessings.